The Legend of William Tell by Terry Small. Once, the men and women who lived by the shores of Lake Lucerne were free and full of hope. Now they trembled in fear of Gessler the Black, the new Austrian viceroy who had seized their lands and ruled with an iron fist and a heart of stone. If anyone dared to disobey him, Gessler had him beaten or thrown into the dungeon to rot. Then one morning a woodsman by the name of William Tell came down from the hills with his young son by his side. When Gessler's soldiers commanded him to kneel, he refused. So Gessler himself seized William's son and issued the legendary Swiss marksman a challenge. Shoot an apple off the top of the lad's head, or he will die by the soldier's hands. That single arrow shot from an ordinary crossbow did more that day than save a life. It changed the course of history. The Legend of William Tell is an adventure story full of high drama that will send your imagination soaring. And Terry Small's vivid verse and striking illustrations will bring this remarkable hero to life. There's a land where the mountains plunge to the lakes, and the rivers run deep and wild, and the pines reach up where the ice creeps down to the place where fortune smiled. It's a land of forest, sun, and snow, where the winters are harsh and stern, but the summers are bliss in the land of the Swiss by the shores of Lake Lucerne. As proud as the pine, as free as the wind, were the men of the savage slope, till they suffered the sword of the Austrian lord and surrendered their freedom and hope. A viceroy came from a foreign land and occupied Altdorf plain, and the people's pride was buried inside at the time of the tyrant's reign. With a fist of iron and a heart of stone and the empire at his back, his name was a hiss on the tongues of the Swiss, Gessler, Gessler the Black. I should have been lord of a civilized state with cathedrals and plazas and fountains, but I gambled the whole on an ill-fated roll. The dice sent me into these mountains. But what Gessler wins, Gessler keeps. My power is absolute. You'll serve my men, or I'll teach you again respect for the heel of my boot. Then Gessler kicked at the carpenter's son and knocked him flat on the ground. Let him lie in the dirt. He deserves to be hurt. While I spoke, he was glancing around. Then he rode off with his guard behind, and the people were left to tremble. And the order came down to the center of town. No crowd is allowed to assemble. In nervous whispers people spoke, in groups of twos and threes, while soldiers posted daily Gessler's list of new decrees. A widow drawn to touch his hem was dragged from the viceroy's path. Who dares to stroke the viceroy's cloak shall feel the viceroy's wrath. A lad who smelled of the flocks he drove was beaten in public view. Those who keep their goats and sheep must keep their distance too. A thatcher working on a roof was cast in a dungeon dire. When I approach by horse or coach, let none be seated higher. And so it went for weeks and months. Don't speak of happy past. Don't laugh too loud. Don't look too proud. Don't stand on the shadow I cast. But men who feared to look at his face stared daggers at his back. And hearts would flame when they spoke the name of Gessler, Gessler the Black. When November came to the Altdorf's plain, crisp and bright and dry, the guards were there in the village square, raising a pole on high. Then Gessler's hat was placed on top, like bait in a hunter's trap, and every soul who passed that pole was ordered to kneel to the cap. Kneel to a cap, the Swiss exclaimed, And the guards replied to a few, "It's kneel as planned, or lose your land, your flocks and families too. It's kneel to the cap, or taste the lash, or rot in a prison hole. And just be glad it's only a cap, and not your head on a pole." "Kneel to a cap?" echoed the Swiss. "Never," they silently vowed. And they stayed away that November day, and held their heads unbowed. Week upon week in the marketplace that cap hung in the air, while an armed patrol stood round the pole and guarded an empty square. No one bought and no one sold, and no one came or went. No one's will was broken, and no one's knee was bent. Some miles away a woodsman roamed. Near Burglin did he dwell. In hunting deer he had no peer, and his name was William Tell. True he was to the cross he wore, so said the folks who knew him, but truer still to the crossbow skill that God had given to him. He shot an apple out of a tree the one time that he tried, but rumor claimed he really aimed to hit the worm inside. One morning early, Tell set out with his young son at his side. "Come with me down to Altdorf town, where friends of mine reside. For I've been too long in these wooded hills, a-chasing the hat in the wind. Farewell to the row, we'll hunt down below for hearts of a different kind." But when they arrived in the center of town, they were shocked by the sight before them. With time to waste, some soldiers paced at a job that seemed to bore them. High overhead on a lofty pole was a cap that flapped in the breeze, and they heard a cry from a guard nearby, "Halt there! Down on your knees!" "Down on my knees?" Bold Tell replied. "You joke, but I don't laugh. My knee never bends to the dearest of friends, much less to a stranger's staff." "No stranger be," the soldier said, "but your very lord and master. His staff will crack your insolent back if you don't obey any faster." Tell turned away, but the soldier's hell-bend stopped him with a poke. "Stay away, perhaps you'll smile when Gessler tells the joke." A horn was blown, and all at once the dreaded Gessler came. "How dare you teach your boy to breach the law that I proclaim? Bend your back and sniff the dirt, and honor Gessler's cap, or the sturdy knees I'll chop like trees, and your blood will run like sap. I'd never bow to an empty cap, nor yet to the man who fills it. My blood runs free inside of me, and woe to the man who spills it." Then Gessler snarled at Tell's reply, reached out and grabbed his son. "We'll see how free your blood will be when Gessler's work is done." "Release the lad," his father cried. "We'll both be on our way, for William Tell and his son know well which master to obey." "Ah, William Tell, I've heard the name pronounced in epic terms, a country Swiss who'd never miss a chance to shoot at worms." He dragged the boy to an apple tree and stood him between the roots. "I've picked you for a target," he said. "You pick the one who shoots." The boy replied, "All marksmen know that only one excels, nor truer bow do these mountains know than my father's, William Tell's." Then Gessler laughed and shook his head. "Your choice is worse than his. For now, I trust, we'll find out just how good he really is. Now, here is ample for his bow. I'll prop it on your head, and if he aims a little low, he'll shoot his son instead." The mighty blast of the soldier's horn, which has called the viceroy there, had summoned as well the friends of Tell who gathered in the square. They watched as William Tell was seized. They saw him dragged and shoved, and they heard him cry he would rather die than shoot at the one he loved. But Gessler smiled a wicked smile, as only Gessler could. "If you won't shoot your favorite fruit, I'm sure my soldiers would." Then William Tell, to spare a life, agreed to press his skill. "One single arrow," Gessler said, "to do the devil's will. One single arrow, choose it well, one arrow and one shot. It just takes one if it's skillfully done, and it just takes one if it's not." Then Tell spun around to look at his quiver, while turning his back on the rest. After he tried all the arrows inside, he quietly pulled out the best. 100 paces, Gessler arose. "No, 101. I'll bet my purse it'll be no worse. For the apple, then for the sun." Tell walked back to the distant spot and knelt with the crossbow ready. He called on his skill, for his heart to be still, his hand and his eye to be steady. He whispered low, "I call on to God, who marks the fall of the sparrow, and numbers the hairs of my own son's head, to guide the flight of my arrow." And then he squeezed the crossbow's trigger that let the arrow fly. The tree was hit, the apple split, and fell to the earth nearby. A shout went up, a mighty shout from the Swiss who filled the square, and they watched Tell run to embrace his son in the cool November air. "William Tell!" they began to yell, in a crowd by law forbidden. But their shouting stopped as an arrow dropped from his shirt where it had been hidden. "What's this? An arrow?" Gessler cried. "An arrow feathered and red? I said one shot was all you got, but you planned for 2 instead. The first was for the apple that I had split apart, but if I had hit my boy with it, the next was for your heart." "Seize the traitor," Gessler raged. "We'll see how bravely he dies." But the voice of the crowd, united and proud, took the viceroy by surprise. "Down with the cap, down with the pole, and down with Gessler too." Then the crowd arose and came to blows as passion stirred anew. History tells of the Swiss revolt by the shores of Lake Lucerne, of the patriots' call and the tyrant's fall, and of freedom's brave return. The legend adds that hope was dim till Gessler and Black lay dead, till liberty came at the deadly aim of an arrow feathered in red. And now in the land of mountain lakes there's a magic that weaves its spell, and a peace endures that forever ensures the fame of William Tell.